Arc Raiders has been soaring off into the sunset, just winning the hearts of players all over. It's been winning everyone into at least trying it, and the Steam numbers recently have just been keep rising up higher and higher. And that's great to see, but it's also fun because of the emergent gameplay, the fun little side missions, and hoping that you don't get airstriked by giant robots zooming in to take you out immediately. The first time I found out that the robots in this game could signal to other robots to rain down fire on you was, well, let's just say it was a learning experience all right. But ever since Arc Raiders first came out, it's been getting glowing reviews, high 90s on Metacritic, 100 on OpenCritic from fans, like it's just kind of ridiculous. Except now, Arc Raiders has fallen down a couple of notches in its rankings. It's not because the game is performing poorly, quite the opposite actually. It's because one specific website finally released a review, and according to them, Arc Raiders should not be celebrated because it is committing a grave sin in their opinion, and the internet has now united like the Avengers against this review, well, to a degree. So the website in question is Eurogamer. The reviewer is Rick Lane. Don't harass anyone in this video, by the way. Let's just observe what's going on here and dissect it like adults, but here's the review that's got everyone up in arms, and it's titled, "A smartly designed extraction shooter marred by one inexcusable decision." And as you can see here, Eurogamer ended up deciding to just give Arc Raiders a 2 out of 5, which in terms of percentages, a good way of looking at it is that every star is like 20%, so 2 stars means that Eurogamer gave the game a 40% out of 100, which, I mean, can we all agree that is actually pretty much bogus? I mean, Arc Raiders, one of the only Unreal Engine 5 games that actually works at release, that's been giving players plenty of content to chase, and despite, yes, having some poor character appearances, I do agree beyond that the game is objectively good. But as you'll come to see with this video, the battle over AI is going to divide people. And let me know what you think as well on where you exactly draw the line with AI as well. Does playing a game that uses it like this game does make you now a hypocrite, or is this a necessary evil? Personally, if I had to review Arc Raiders, I would give the game like an 8 out of 10, but a 4 from Eurogamer is just kind of crazy to me, dude. But anyway, this is their verdict summarized, which reads, "Rich PvE combat and an unusually friendly community makes Arc Raiders a more approachable extraction shooter than most, but Embark Studios' continued use of AI voice generation is a black mark against its reputation." Yeah, so the big problem here in Eurogamer's opinion is that Embark, which makes the game apparently, uses AI voices in the game, which now suddenly means the game is unplayable and you shouldn't play it, and everyone surrounding this and whatever is just garbage now. And also, if you want more content, consider liking and subscribing, by the way, thank you, but this now begs the question, is Eurogamer then right that Arc Raiders is unplayable and uses AI voices? Well, the AI voice thing at least, yes, to an extent. However, it does need to be further delved into because simply stating that does not paint the whole picture. You see, when Polygon spoke on this as well, this was back in October 2025 when Arc Raiders first launched, and yes, even then this controversy was still brewing for some in the background. So the thing is that Embark Studios has used AI voices in their previous games like The Finals, for example, which is a free-to-play battle royale style game. So already people were getting angry or docking points for Arc Raiders because of something that was already established in their previous games. It seems kind of bogus to me. It's also not as if Embark even really tried to hide this information from anyone either, because if they did, that would be a different story. But it's specifically labeled even on their Steam page, for example, that yes, the game does in fact use AI-generated voice lines. The actual quote is this: "During the development process, we may use procedural and AI-based tools to assist with content creation. In all such cases, the final product reflects the creativity and expression of our own development team." So, like I said, they were not hiding the fact that they were indeed using AI voices within their games at all. Now, how are these voices made, you may be asking? Are they just pulled from some random website unethically? No. They were actually interviewed by IGN about this, as they say here that making games without actors is not the endgame goal. This is what Embark told IGN. "We use a combination of recorded voice audio and audio generated via TTS tools in our games, depending on the context," an Embark spokesperson told IGN. "Sometimes recording real scenes where actors get together, allowing character chemistry and conflict to shape the outcome is something that adds depth to our game worlds that technology can't emulate. Other times, especially when it relates to contextual in-game action callouts, TTS allows us to have tailored voiceover where we otherwise wouldn't. For example, due to speed of implementation." So Embark confirms that they, for example, don't use voice actors actors to record stuff, like grunting or panting in their games. Instead, those lines are actually recorded by the real developers who were also working on these games instead, so that's again not really unethical. However, like the spokesperson said, the real reason for all of this is the speed of the implementation that they want, that the majority of the AI voiceover work is done like this. Embark hires a voice actor who then records a bunch of lines with them to the point where Embark can then use AI to use that voice actor's voice to then emulate practically anything they need at the time. The reason for this is mostly because Embark uses these AI prompts for tagging items in the game. So if you played Arc Raiders, you've likely tagged an item for a teammate, like a gun or say some sort of crafting material in the world. Those lines that your character says, those are AI lines that are derived from an actual voice actor who voiced those lines in a sense. But as Embark adds more and more items to the game, like new guns and enemies and whatever else they want to do, I assume the reason why they want the AI voice to be able to replicate it is for a few reasons. One is maybe consistency, because people's voices change over time and voice actors are really no different. So likely they want the future items they add to the game to have the same tone or pitch that previous items voiced by either raider you play, as close to how it was to begin with. The second reason is simply if they need to add an item really fast to the game, which when it comes to live service games is pretty often. So now they can just add the item, add the prompt for that single voice line, and then I guess be done with it. And the disclosing of the AI voice capture is not hidden either from the voice actor as well, according to Embark Studios, who I can only trust here to be telling the truth until I guess proven otherwise, claims that every voice actor signs a contract that their voice will be used in the future even if they're not present to do the line. So the actors are paid, that's true, but it's also true that in the future, as new items or enemies then join the game, those quick lines are not being done by those actors at that time. Yes, at that point, it is AI. But they did confirm before there that they still do use the actors for actual cutscenes, so the voice actors are still getting work in the future, and still getting paid in theory within that same role that they were doing, because they physically obviously have to be there to perform the lines in the cutscene. Now, is this unethical? Well, that's a blurry line at best, and really everyone's gonna have a different opinion on it. The truth is that we all know that AI is becoming more and more prevalent in everything. That's not just video games. The likelihood that we've all watched a movie or a show or listened to a song that has been created partly by AI or has AI in it would not really surprise me these days. I mean, even for me where I live, like I'll give you an example, okay? I've seen people protesting outside of grocery stores like in real life, because these companies that I guess own these grocery stores, they basically fired their employees over like a contract dispute. But what really surprised me was that as I was walking by this protest in real life again, by the way, this actually happened, I swear, that protest had literal music that was rap music where some guy was rapping actual lines about how specifically shady the companies that own these grocery stores were. Like full-on songs about what the protest was about, and I kind of just stopped walking, honestly, and I just like turned and I was kind of amazed. And I just thought to myself, like, these protesters are actually using AI right now to write their songs that they want to use in their protest. Like, it was very obviously AI, but it was so weird to honestly hear that in person in real life, like being used in a ironic way. So when I say that AI is just becoming more and more prevalent, it's the truth. Do I like it? Not really, but like it just is. You know what I mean? Like it just is. I mean, sure, okay, AI has existed in games for a long time. I know that in terms of like the enemy behaviors and whatnot, but what Embark and others are doing is not technically the sort of AI that I guess some people would have more of a problem with. More so, it's generative AI that they have a problem with, which is actually what it means to use AI to create something that technically was not done by human hands. So again, circling this all back to Eurogamer, they have indeed been getting dragged across the internet for this review, depends on who you ask, I guess. The majority of the review is actually pretty much glowing of the game. There's no reason to read you any of that because I can pretty much just sum it up as Eurogamer really likes Arc Raiders and its game design and its quests and whatnot. But at one point, this is where the Eurogamer review starts to veer off into that anti-AI part as seen here, and the reviewer makes it clear that they are skeptical of AI and they understand that Embark does not use ChatGPT but instead TTS, which by the way is short for text-to-speech. But Eurogamer then says this: certainly machine learning is not a new technology in video games, experimented with by developers at least since the black and white days. The animation of the arcs, how they adapt to environment and react to being shot, are based on similar principles to black and white's creature AI. Embark has attempted to create emergent behaviors in its enemies through reinforcement learning, enabling them to both move and react to terrain and player behavior in highly realistic ways. It's an interesting technology, and the effects it produces during matches are undeniably convincing. Yeah, because what they've done with it, at least when it comes to AI anyways, in this game specifically, is pretty much remarkable. I won't say it's as impressive as say like the Alien and Alien Isolation, but It's still pretty great. But this is the part of the review where everyone really started to raise their eyebrow, but Eurogamer then said, "The same cannot be said about Embark's generated voice lines, which are aggressively mediocre and a stain on the experience. While speaking characters are mostly limited to traders, though player characters also vocalize emotes and pings during matches, when you do speak with them, their voices are flat and emotionally blunted. Aside from the occasional bizarre inflection that reveals their robotic roots, it's telling that the sole memorable character in Arc Raiders is a rooster incapable of speech." They continued further, "Embark claims it uses AI voices so the studio can implement ideas quicker, creating new voice lines in hours rather than having to go through the longer process of manual re-recording and therefore rehiring actors. But NPC voices are not central to the experience, so I don't think this argument holds water. Even if it did, Arc Raiders launch has been so successful, Embark could probably hire a team of live-in voice actors and still make gargantuan amounts of profit, while benefiting from more memorable characters as a result." Yes, again, the lines of, say, the traders in the game, and this needs to be said, or like the quest givers, which is the same thing pretty much in Arc Raiders, they are not AI. That needs to be like said and confirmed 100%. Those are not AI. That needs to be clear. Like all those lines, those are all recorded by the actual voice actors themselves specifically for those moments in the games or the missions and the context provided. The AI that Eurogamer is citing as a problem, as this apocalyptic scenario that's causing all the ruckus, those are mostly tied to specifically background NPC characters and your raider. You know when you load into Arc Raiders, like the main hub Speranza, and your character kind of just stands there and you see all the kinds of people walking around your character in the main hub screen? So a lot of the voices in the background there of random people talking and whatnot, those are AI voices specifically. But characters like Lance or Celeste, you know, the traders, the quest givers, for example, those are fully voiced by actors for whatever line they say. Like, it's totally normal. And then you have the AI voices that are also tied to you as your raider, the character you play. Again, when you ping something, that is 100% an AI voice. That's what Eurogamer is really angry about here. So I need to bring the context there, okay? It's not just like the whole game is AI. No, it's these specific parts. So this is where the reviewer of this piece tries to justify what they've done here, which then reads, "At the same time, is Embark's use of AI voices sufficient to compromise the game given they are only a small part of the experience? I mulled over this for a while, and the more I thought about it, the angrier I became. Because yes, using AI voices does compromise Arc Raiders, not just ethically, but artistically too." Oh boy, here we go. Eurogamer then continues, "Let's start with the obvious point that Arc Raiders is set in a world where humanity has been driven underground by a race of hostile robots. The contradiction here between Arc Raiders' themes and the manner of its creation is so glaring that it makes me want to scream. You made a game about the tragedy of humans being replaced by robots while replacing humans with robots. Embark, it displays a total lack of awareness, or worse, willful ignorance of Arc Raiders' own semantics." So let's stop there for a second. I guess I'm going to ask you guys as well again. Does what the reviewer said at this point, does it have any water, if you will, in your opinion so far? Is it highly contradictory to make a game about robots and humans while also having robots replace humans as well in the NPC dialogue, specifically in your raider and those NPCs? I'm kind of 50-50 on this because, again, the actual characters are voiced by real actors. It's just mostly your raider, which is, let's be real, hardly a character anyways. I mean, your raider doesn't really matter because you can eventually unlock a system where you can send your raider on a permanent expedition, and then that character just goes off into the sunset and then you have to start a new character. Like, that's a system in the game, which kind of tells me that Embark has created this game from the get-go to where your actual raider, like who you play as, is not really a character. It's sort of like Destiny or other games, you know? Like, sure, I guess your Guardian is a character in Destiny's story, but your Guardian is nowhere near as voiced or showcased as, say, Crow or like Zavala in that game's story. I kind of feel the same in Arc Raiders. Like, you're a raider, kind of like a Guardian. The actual characters, though, are like Celeste and Lance and more, like any of these other games, you know? But then Eurogamer brings up here, I'll put it on screen at least, that they ran into random people looking for lemons in Arc Raiders, like lemons for the little chicken guy, and that the real person in-game speech that they heard from that player was more realistic than anything the reviewer heard from anyone else in the game, and then this bothered them greatly. But this is how they end their review, which reads, "Arc Raiders has facilitated millions of similar interactions since launch, but that only makes Embark's use of AI voices more abhorrent. For Arc Raiders to ride the wave of human sociability all the way to the bank, while also being so contemptuous of the things that make us social animals in its own workflow, carving up human voices and reassembling them like a digital Victor Frankenstein demonstrates a lack of artistic integrity that I find impossible to ignore. However smartly designed Arc Raiders is, I cannot recommend it because Embark does not value the thing that makes it special, and thus they gave it a 2 out of 5, which, like I said, has now tanked their Metacritic score and OpenCritic score because of all of this. So I'm conflicted about it, I gotta be real. In a way, I can see where this reviewer is coming from, but I still can't agree 100% with them either. I don't think that Arc Raiders is somehow a soulless game simply because of this one design change, because the game itself is still being made by people. Like every level, every room, the guns, the missions, it was all crafted by human hands. Like we know this. The actual characters like the vendors and the quest givers that speak between the missions, those are all fully voiced by real life people that exist, that did those lines and got paid for it. The art in all of those aspects was not AI generated. Artists actually made those things that you interact with in game. But again, the reviewer is praising how Embark was able to use their enemy designs and that technology to make them behave and react to players in believable ways, which is technically also AI. And I cannot really in good conscience look at all the things that were being created by human hands here that Eurogamer themselves have also praised, and then somehow just turn that all around and go, you know what? None of this matters. This game sucks and everything I like about it is now invalidated because of this one single thing. I can't go that far. It doesn't really seem, legit to me. Like the game is popular because of that human element. It's not like the other raiders that you meet are robots. Like they're people. At least I think they're people. I'm pretty sure they're people. Like I said, like for example, at one point in the game, like I ran into some kid that was squealing in my ear while I was looking for stuff. And then that kid shot me without even responding to me. So I healed myself. I turned around and then I just unloaded a whole clip onto that little squeaker kid until I heard him screaming. And then I just took him out and I stole his stuff in the game. And like, honestly, no AI could make me hate that little freak I ran into than like a real human being could. But I've also had really nice moments in the game where I like once went up a zip line. I had robots chasing me. I was really weak. And when I landed from the zip line, I ended up meeting another guy who was just standing there who was also hiding from the robots, and he had a shotgun. So he had the upper hand. He could have taken me out right there, but he didn't. We instead worked together. We were talking the whole time and he was giving me pointers. He told me about some secret areas, how to do this and that. He helped me out. Like he genuinely helped me out. He gave me items and everything. And then we just went our separate ways. And it was really cool. Like those are human moments. It was also human when a guy like jump scared me once by accident. Then I just ended up shooting him in the face. I mean, yeah, well, he didn't make it, but like that was still a human interaction. You know what I mean? Like the point is that Arc Raiders, I think the game is popular, yes, because of its easier difficulty curve about being an extraction shooter and such, but also because it allows you to be human, as in you, the player, in a world that's like full of robots and other people. So the lines about marking things in the world, they seem kind of arbitrary because the real voice of your raider is not the voice actor, it's you. And it seems like this reviewer has kind of forgotten that. Like when he said that lemon guy looking for lemons was more real than anyone he heard in the game from his own raider, well, like duh, because a lemon guy was a real guy. You can't compare in-game voice chat shenanigans to say generic game lines that are meant to just be simple audio cues so that you can, know what's around you pretty much. You can't compare those things. You're trying to, at that point, compare the real world to the fake. It doesn't really work. But I think giving the game a lower score, again, which was 40%, that's just wild to me. That makes no sense. Because it just seems more like this was a hit piece for this reviewer that was trying to do some sort of activist thing over just being a game reviewer. Which, I mean, okay, this is game journalism, so who are we kidding? But people have pointed out, for example, that the same reviewer for Arc Raiders also gave Concord, for example, a 3 out of 5 stars as seen here, which kind of tells me that this sort of reviewer maybe wants to see more of certain things specifically and less of others, which maybe that's their right, I don't know. But people in the comment section then started to point out the hypocrisy, like this user named Lemonade. I have no idea why lemons are showing up in this video so much, but this Lemonade guy says here that they believe that Eurogamer's article is disingenuous because they do use real voice actors, but even then the game is docked 60 points regardless. Then Asmongold came in and said this: "It will be a wonderful day when I get to farm your company because they do layoffs. You know it's coming. Everyone knows it. You're going home soon." I mean, the statistic probability that Eurogamer inevitably does have layoffs like every other website in the future is, very likely. Who are we kidding? But the point here is that while yes, I can see where the argument can be made that Arc Raiders using AI voices can be seen as a big no-no by some, it still doesn't change the fact that they do still use real voices regardless for the actual characters, and the game, like 99% of it, maybe even more than that, is made by human hands. Now, if all the voices in the game were 100% AI, as in everyone and everything, that's a totally different conversation. But Eurogamer knows that that's not the case, which is why this review, if you ask me, it should be probably redone, because it honestly comes off more so as performative than, say, informative. Eurogamer could have written an article that wasn't a review about this being a problem, and that's fine. But specifically using the review as a ways of like sticking it to Embark and lowering their Metacritic score like this just kind of feels, well, it feels like activism to me. I don't know how else to put it. As if like the actual review itself is sort of secondary to what they wanted to push here. You had other people chime in too, like Grums, who said this about Eurogamer's review. Eurogamer gives Arc Raiders 2 stars because they use some generative AI human voices. This isn't a review, it's a hit piece. Creative studios will use AI to their advantage to give you more human time and design and polish. It's a tool. Using it helps game devs focus on the important things, and in the case of generative voices, I think the trade-off between static recorded lines and on-the-fly dialogue that reacts to your actions is worth it. So I know this may be nuanced, but it bears repeating that if all the voice acting was AI, we would rightfully all be slamming down on arc raiders. I think we can all agree on that. But that the AI voice stuff is tied to two things that we know of, unless at some later day we find out more. But at this given time right now, as this video being made anyways, it's tied to your raider reacting to things happening and the random NPCs you hear on the main screen, which again are completely random people that don't have identities. You never actually speak to them. They just walk by the screen. While there were comments on Eurogamer's posts, supporting their score, if I had to pick a point, I would say that the majority of what arc raiders is, that was all made by human hands. And that the parts that are AI are small enough that personally, I think, not like just in general, the players that play the game, most players probably won't care either way, if I'm being honest. I'm still sort of indifferent to myself. I kind of flip-flop between it mattering or not to me, but I don't think, honestly, the majority of the players out there who play this game are going to care one bit, if I'm being real. Yes, AI is a complicated topic because some believe it's inevitable, others just want it gone flat out, but it's like any other tool, it just depends on how it's used. I personally don't want games to use, let's say, AI art environments, for example, but even games like Elden Ring have used AI machine learning to create the basis of the map in Elden Ring. Plus, it doesn't help Eurogamer's case when they've been caught being selectively outraged over other things too. Kyle, for example, here's his profile on screen, grabbed other times a Eurogamer has had equally bad takes on other things. Like here, where Eurogamer initially pushed back against Palworld and thought it was derivative rubbish according to them. Or the same Eurogamer which tried to initiate a boycott against Final Fantasy 16 because the cast of the game was too white and not diverse enough for them, which was a real thing they tried to do, as you're seeing on screen, dude. Like, that's real. Yet hilariously, the people who read that Final Fantasy 16 hit piece by Eurogamer, as also seen here, they voted no when asked if they would boycott the game in Eurogamer's own poll, because again, they get selectively outraged by whatever they want to. Eurogamer is also the same publication which gave Dragon Age Veilguard a 5 out of 5, by the way. Here's the proof of that. They even went as far as to call Veilguard the best BioWare game they've ever played, which is, okay, that's definitely a statement, alright. But look, like I said, I'm on the fence about this somewhat. On one end, what Eurogamer's reviewer here is bringing up feels like valid criticism. Do I think the use of AI should increase to a point where the human element is completely removed from the games? No, of course not. I don't want games made where there's an art director on the game, I guess, who's human, but then his whole team is just AI. I think, though, that this review would have been valid maybe if Eurogamer at least gave Arc maybe like a 4 out of 5. Like, they docked it at 20% or like 1 star because of that AI stuff. Like, that would have at least still felt like a justified review. Because you can't frame your entire review the way that you have, where you are objectively saying it's a great game and you're glowing with all this stuff. Oh, it has a great system, loot and co-op and shooting. All of that is amazing, but then you swing around at the end of your review and go, yeah, besides it being an objectively great game, this one thing sucks, therefore now it's a 4 out of 10. Like, no matter how you slice it, that just sounds like a hit piece to me, you know? So while I do think the reviewer here brought up some good points, I still think ultimately how they came to the conclusion and what they decided was their verdict was kind of the wrong way of doing things. And I think ignoring the hard work and talent of these developers who worked on everything this reviewer themselves said was good, only to then turn it around to this, is frankly pretty misguided. So is Arc Raider still a good game? Yes. Are the AI voice lines kind of a miss? Also, yes. You can enjoy things and play them while also objectively having issues with that product, by the way. We all do it. Like, ask anybody that plays Call of Duty. They all have problems with that game. They still play it. And I've already said in other Arc Raider videos that I've done that the game has objectively poor character customization, like visually. I don't like how this game has only options of either being a skinny woman or like a male twink, pretty much. It's pretty lame. But even though I think visually the character designs are mostly a miss, the actual gameplay and the systems are good. I can praise those while being critical of other elements of the same game. The same way I love Final Fantasy 16 a lot, but I can objectively say it is not a very good RPG because let's be real, it's barely even an RPG. It's more so an action game. You can still play things even if you don't like some things in them. That's what I'm trying to say. I know sometimes there are things in games that cross a moral line for people. Like for me, I won't play a game if, say, the lead actor supports Antifa in that one game that I'm sure you're all aware of, but with the use of AI here, while it is in a sense a blight in a sense to some, I personally don't think that this will affect the sales of the game because the majority of players just either don't care or think what surrounds this one blemish on the apple that is Arc Raiders is not enough for them to just throw it all away. But I do think that it sparked a good conversation regardless. I don't think it makes you a hypocrite if you now enjoy Arc Raiders still. Because like I said in this video, the situation is far more nuanced than it sounds at first but in the end, if the realization this writer came to was to dock the game 60 whole points for this one single problem, yeah, then it is ultimately more so a hit piece than really anything else, and that can't be understated. But now I ask you, would this be enough for you to now drop Arc Raiders? Where do you cross the line with AI? Is this review a good review, or is it now a hit piece? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for being here, subscribe, and see you next time.